I'm here with Hamish Saxton, who is the CEO of Hawke's Bay Tourism. Kia ora, Hamish, and thanks for joining me.
Sure, Andrew.
Hamish, it's been a tough time for the last few years. We'll start with that, with COVID and that. And I think you started around sort of just before that almost. How has it been over those last years?
There's a few ways of looking at it. Look, the tourism sector has had an extraordinarily tough period since March 2020, when we started closing our borders to COVID. And then as we were recovering from that period as well, of course, Hawke's Bay was significantly affected by Cyclone Gabrielle. So since 2020, we've had a number of very, very tough years indeed. Thankfully, in some ways, the visitor economy, particularly in Hawke's Bay, is a resilient and positive bunch of people who remain focused and are encouraged by potential lying around the corner, with what we hope will be some good future years coming up.
Get onto that in a moment, but just in terms of how did what sort of impact did COVID and the cyclone have on the industry in terms of closures of business, lack of tourists coming? If you can just sort of spell it out to us, or what happened?
Yeah. Well, look, let's start off with what we know, and that's that Hawke's Bay Tourism, we're a limited liability company that is owned by our membership, and our membership is the Hawke's Bay Tourism Industry Association. Those are people who effectively pledge a membership to support Hawke's Bay Tourism and receiving a grant, first and foremost, from the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. And our aim is to promote Hawke's Bay as an ideal place for visitors. So Hawke's Bay Tourism works to attract people from out of the region to come into the region. And for us, that is from north of Mōrere to south of Porongaho, the whole of the Hawke's Bay region. Pre-COVID, 80% of our visitor market was made up of domestic travellers. Now, domestic travellers are those people who are New Zealanders. So we were getting lots of lovely long weekends and visits for conferences and holidays and visiting friends and family from our visitor market. Primarily, the biggest markets, Auckland and Wellington. Also those within a 4.5 to 5 hour drive. All of that makes sense. From an international perspective, roughly 20% of our visitors were from overseas. The majority of those from Australia, US, UK, and Europe. Tourism was worth roughly 700 million in direct spend into the region. Tourism was worth an additional roughly $670 million in flow-on investment into the region. Tourism was the third biggest contributor to our region's GDP, and tourism employed 1 in 10 people in our region. So tourism is a really, really important sector. We call it the visitor economy, and the measurement, it can be hard to measure, but the measurements that we have more recently have been what's called the tourism the Tourism Electronic Card Transaction, TECT. Our industry is made up of a lot of acronyms, and that was able to measure domestic spend. So when you travel more than 40 kilometres away from your place of residence, you were counted as a visitor, and the spend that you would spend in those places, well, that's where we benefited from that. So when the borders were closed to New Zealand, those businesses in Hawke's Bay that were especially reliant upon the international visitor, they struggled. And look, so many of our businesses, obviously, when we had that level 4 requirement to be isolating at home, I mean, everything closed for 2 months or more. But that brought an end to cruise ship visitors, coach tour visitors, visitors from overseas. So that was an end to our international visitors, which forced obviously some businesses to relook at how they could do business. So I go back, those visitors, those businesses that were specifically reliant upon international visitors, they struggled the most as we came out of COVID. Coming out of COVID, we were also entering into a naturally quiet season. Hawke's Bay does get quieter over those winter or shoulder months from visitation as well. So interestingly, though, when you had a whole bunch of New Zealanders who were unable to travel overseas, they were flocking to Hawke's Bay. And what was a really interesting statistic was that in our first year post-COVID, Hawke's Bay enjoyed the best ever visitor spend that
Wow.
we had experienced because we offer such a wonderful domestic holiday experience. We offer those wonderful things that people travel offshore to do. So we were able to come out, and we were ready. We were ready with a campaign called a Baycation, and the concept around that was, well, look, if you can't get to Bordeaux, if you can't get to Barossa, if you can't get to these lovely places, come to Hawke's Bay because we have so much to offer here. And look, we did really, really well out of that. And when Auckland went into those other lockdowns over the next 2 years with Omicron and other lockdowns, that's when we noticed also our reliance on some of those big markets and bigger spenders from those regions.
Did you have
And
many? Did you have many businesses closing as a
no,
result, either accommodation or restaurants or anything? Was it
no.
just sort of just taking a tough hit there?
Yeah, look, I mean, our members, so again, I can only talk about those businesses of ours who are our members. You'll recall that many accommodation businesses were suddenly dealing with a different type of domestic market. Our premium visitor experiences, accommodation, lodges, that type of thing. Again, they had New Zealanders who are experiencing those, and some properties actually were now working with COVID, were working as emergency housing. So some changed their business model during that period as well. So in terms of actual closures as a result, as a direct result of COVID, I would say from our membership perspective, those closures were minimal.
Okay. And since the borders have reopened, have you seen the international visitor come back? And obviously we're going to have the cruise. We've got the cruise ships coming as well. Are you noticing a big increase in
Yeah,
international visitors?
certainly. Look, international flights into New Zealand are still not at the levels that they were pre-COVID. However, and I'm sure some of those viewers watching this will know as well, there's been a significant increase in capacity now across the Pacific between the US and Auckland in particular. So that's really, really good. It's exciting that that US market has the potential to grow with all the capacity that's being put on. But some of those direct flights between Asia, for example, China in particular, and New Zealand, we haven't seen that level of return. From a cruise ship perspective, well, before the cyclone, we were ramping up to enjoy our best ever cruise season. And at this stage, with all the cruise ships that are currently booked into Napier Port, Hawke's Bay will be enjoying its best ever cruise season for the 23-24 cruise season period.
And now, what you're talking about that during COVID, it was staycation in the bay. What is your theme at the moment? What is your setting point?
Well, we're really trying to change perceptions at the moment. We've just sort of done a review, since the 14 February cyclone, Hawke's Bay has been in the news constantly,
Yeah,
arguably for all of the wrong reasons. And we
yeah,
have had weeks and months repetitively of images of Hawke's Bay underwater, covered in silt, whether physically all of the sites that are related to tourism have been or not, and certainly, we've got more than 90% of our businesses are more than operational, and you wouldn't be able to tell necessarily that they are or have been affected by a cyclone. And I acknowledge those businesses and who still are terribly affected by the results of the cyclone, but there are a lot of New Zealanders who have still been asking those questions. Is it safe to come to Hawke's Bay? Is it going to be the experience that we had pre-cyclone? And so we've been really, really busy trying to change those perceptions. And as you'll know, Hawke's Bay has become one of the world's great wine capitals. That's an initiative that we're now part of. We were originally going to make that announcement in March of this year. With the cyclone happening, we were able to repurpose that announcement. We made that announcement in May, and I think it helped us kind of reset perceptions about Hawke's Bay. Rod Stewart in April helped change some perceptions of visitors that Hawke's Bay was great and safe to come to. And Robbie Williams' concert that we enjoyed just over a week ago, 2 beautiful days, the towns, our cities, our regions just completely full of visitors from elsewhere, will also have helped change those perceptions. But for the first time in many, many years, we are having to promote Hawke's Bay as a great place to have a summer holiday. Now, normally we wouldn't promote that because normally Hawke's Bay is chock-a-block and considered a wonderful, wonderful place to go to for summer. But we're wanting to really double down on ensuring that this summer is our best ever, so that we can completely and utterly just reset that narrative that post-cyclone, Hawke's Bay is a great visitor destination.
Now, you spoke about Robbie Williams, and I read that you were saying that that was your biggest weekend. And so what was it about? What sort of ramifications did that have? Not only just many people coming in, but obviously the restaurants and bars and tourist attractions. It was a big weekend.
It was a huge weekend, and it was having 2 Robbie Williams concerts over the one weekend. It was absolutely mammoth. And of course it required people to stay. It required people to stay longer. People were arriving earlier, so we had people coming in, filling the towns and regions from Thursday and Friday, and actually staying longer. There were still plenty of people about on Monday and Tuesday. Air New Zealand put on additional flights into Hawke's Bay to deal with the demand, and even with those additional flights, there was still the inability to get a seat out of Hawke's Bay on the Monday and Tuesday. So there were a lot of people staying, a lot of people enjoying their time here. We had that beautiful weather, but talking to retailers, talking to hospitality managers, it was huge. And I think it put a lot of smiles on the faces of our businesses who so very much really needed to see that business come back. And I think it also gave a significant shot in the arm about confidence. We had such lovely anecdotal feedback from our visitors about how wonderful Hawke's Bay was. So it was a huge benefit.
So you're looking forward to a big summer then?
Yeah, we are looking forward to a big summer. Look, there are so many great events coming up. Hawke's Bay is always a great place to come and enjoy summer events, to enjoy our beautiful beaches, enjoy our beautiful weather. And I think forward bookings are looking really, really good. Our international visitors are particularly good at booking in advance, and they're really, really positive about visiting our region. As I say, we've got those cruise ships coming in. We've got about 70 days worth of cruise ship visits up until April. So it's going to be we're expecting it to be a really great season.
And what are some of the events that are happening over the next few months that you would like to mention?
Well, of course, we've got some of the Butte ones with Nest Fest. There's Outfield. There's an international cricket match coming up. We've got Harvest, which is occurring this coming weekend. We've got Horse of the Year in March, Art Deco Festival in February. We've got Bridge Par Wine Festival. Look, there are so many events that are occurring that are going to be attracting so many people. It's just going to be fantastic. And yeah, look, it's just a full season of celebrating all that is wonderful about Hawke's Bay. A place that we promote as being New Zealand's food and wine country. So, you know, experiencing the farmers market and all the joy and the sales again during the Robbie Williams concert, and afterwards our farmers markets both in Napier and Hastings, and I think also the markets further south in Central Hawke's Bay. They just had a wonderful time with all of those people from out of town.
And as the industry sort of organization and sort of spokespeople, are you finding that generally the industry comes together well to promote itself?
Oh, the visitor economy industry is amazing. I mean, we are particularly well networked with our accommodation, our attractions, our activities, our events. Again, it's we bring joy to a lot of people, from out of our region. We want to be great hosts, so it's a wonderful industry and sector to be a part of that works really, really well together, because it's just such a there's just a lot of positivity about it. It's a great sector, and I go back to what I said earlier in this interview. It employs 1 person in 10. It's really important. It is our 3rd biggest contributor to GDP. It attracts a lot of money to our region, and I think we've got to perhaps stop using the word tourist. I mean, we're talking about welcoming our friends and family. 80% of our market is the domestic market. So I can only encourage anybody in Hawke's Bay to continue to welcome their friends and family, whether they're staying with them or not. Get them here, invite them here to events to share that special time with you here in beautiful Hawke's Bay.
And what is Hawke's Bay's best kept secret that you would like people to know about tourism-wise?
Oh, look, I think, again, it's not so much the best kept secret, it's making sure that we continue to promote ourselves as New Zealand's food and wine country. That is the thing that sets Hawke's Bay apart from anywhere else. And you can experience all of those aspects of food and wine country while you are here. It's just that's a terrific experience. You then obviously add the so many other parts to the sum. All of those, the Art Deco, the gannets, the Māori culture and heritage to this region, the dock landscape, the hot pools in Moreri, the beaches of Central Hawke's Bay. I know I could go on, and I'm sure that your listeners will also have their own views on all of those wonderful parts, but there are so many reasons to spend a good long time in Hawke's Bay, to ponder, to just actually to soak up what we've got, and to have a really, really good summer holiday, in particular this season.
What are you personally looking forward to this summer in Hawke's Bay?
Personally, I'm actually having a holiday because that's a couple of weeks holiday. That's the time when actually we need to step back as a marketing organisation and allow all of our members to enjoy being really, really busy and hosting all the visitors that I hope and expect will be coming to the region.
Hamish Saxton, thank you so much for your time and all the best for the future.
Thanks very much.